And hi, everybody. I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor. Welcome to our Smart Performance series that will start today. They'll be here every week, going live at 2:30 to 3 p.m. It's open for anybody to join. It can be seen on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Even if I miss an episode, I'll certainly post the link in LinkedIn for people to see. Again, the topic will be variety. As you know, the SMART acronym that I have created is about self-care, mindful growth, adaptive problem solving, rhythmic operations, building that thriving community, and the piece for performance. So we will hold that order and we'll, over time, week by week, we'll cover all of the topics. And of course, we can remix that as many times as we need to over the weeks, months, and years to come, because there's an endless supply of topics we need to talk about in order to get people to become the best version of themselves, become the leaders that their teams need them to be, and of course, to be the leader that you want to be for your team. Something that brings you comfort and joy, and it gives you an opportunity for promotion and advancement, for you to go on your journey to wherever that leads you. It's about dreaming big and acting small, which of course you are in the driver's seat. As I've said many times in the past, leadership is a profession, and we need to treat it as such. They don't teach you this in your bachelor's or master's degree. They don't do it in your fellowship program, although we do a better job there. But learning to lead is a behavior. This is something that is we need to learn and become more aware of. It needs to be, we need to be managing our lower brain and upper brain. We need to understand the value of responding to things rather than to reacting to things. So today's topic is about why leaders can't pour from an empty cup. What do I mean with that? Is that most mentees I speak to will tell me that they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They feel they're on the clock 24 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially in healthcare, but other industries as well. And that they, at or near burnout. 64% of the latest studies show that the people in healthcare specifically are at or near burnout. That's no way to live your life. And I want you to think about that if you make a self-assessment, right? It is that we are all juggling many balls. Let's say 6 or 7 of them. It is only one of those balls that is made out of glass, right? If we drop the ball on an operation issue, it can bounce, we can pick it back up and try again. But if we, let that glass ball fall and it shatters, that's a representation of you, your family, your friends, your loved ones. And we cannot afford to drop the ball there. So we need to become more self-aware around that topic. And that's really what, the label today is, right? Why leaders can't pour from an empty cup, right? If your will tank is just about depleted, it's very difficult to dig deeper. And too often, and I will be the first to say that part of our operations system is to love the people that you lead. It starts with self-love first. You have to take care of you before you're really truly capable of taking care of others. And that is something you need to take to heart, and that's a behavior. If you don't make that a priority, you don't make you a priority, as time progresses, it becomes harder to take care of the people around you. And they will become attentive to that, right? As when you are coming to work not as bubbly, or you're not making good eye contact, or you don't have meaningful discussion, or you are continuously distracted, whatever interaction you have with the people that you're supposed to love, right? Those people that you are leading. And these are, early warning signals that you need to acknowledge, you need to be aware of. So I say that if I want you to sit back and just kind of like think to yourself, right? How do I feel about going to work on Sunday afternoon? If this is giving you any level of trepidation, anxiety, palpitations, or, oh my God, it's Monday again, right? It's time to be self-reflective and ask yourself the question, why is that? It is so normal for new leaders or newly promoted leaders to want to overproduce, because the philosophy is, or I don't even know where it comes from, but the philosophy is the more I work, the more likely it is that I will be noticed And the more likely it is that I'll get that promotion that I long after. But that's a fallacy. Leaders are being promoted not just on performance. It's really about your quality decision making. Can your boss trust you to make the right decisions? And when he or she finally finds that you have that capability without dependence, then you're in a spotlight they would like to see to be promoted. Or if you're in that position, you can easily speak to that point when you go out for interviewing outside of your company. Again, it is important to acknowledge the fact that we should work about 32 hours a week. That's effective. That's 85% of your time. You should be working on something. And again, most of what we do is non-value added, but that's a whole different conversation. All right, sometimes we need to stretch that to 100% or 40 hours a week. So if you can look in the screen here or look in the mirror and say, listen, I'm honestly working 50 to 60 hours a week, you're overproducing. And I would encourage you to look inward, because if you don't, you will burn out. You will lose that joy of leading. And the likelihood that you will be promoted is not that great, because your performance will suffer on the back end. Remember that on the end of the day, it is simple. High performance is the function of trust and engagement. If you are not connected, people around you can feel that. Therefore, they will disengage and trust will be eroded. And all those things that you seek, right, high performance, because you think that is going to lead you to the next rung up the career ladder, is all for nothing. It also takes you one step closer to dropping that glass ball, which we just talked about. You can't afford to do. So I want you to think about that, right? So here are 3 signs that I would want you to write down for yourself. And put it on a scale of 1 to 10. Assess for yourself to where am I, right? Are you reacting instead of responding, right? Is your temper short? Be brutally honest with yourself. Right? If you're irritable, right, that's reacting. Not a good position to be in. Are you tolerating things that you need to address or you used to address but stop doing? Right, that's where that disengagement comes from. I'm tired of going after the non-compliant employee because nobody cares. Nobody does anything about it. So why would I care? Well, your personal brand is at stake, right? It's not about others. It's not about the organization. It's about how you represent yourself, how you can add value, right? How you can be seen by others based on the decisions that you make, or the stories that you can create that you can carry forward as you go into your interviews. Right? The third question of that is that your team is picking up on something, right? They're very intuitive. Even if they can't quite name it, they feel that something is not quite right. Again, the interesting part is we are looking at ourselves from our reality, our experience. When I work with mentees, one of the first exercises I ask them to do is to go ask the people how they perceive you as a leader. On the end of the day, it's not important how you see yourself. It's important how they perceive you, because that's what needs to be managed. Right? What are your differentiating strengths? What are your weaknesses? What you should do more of? And you're not looking for a reaction out of one person and try to make a course correction. But if you see something consistently, then it is time to address that. So if people have come to you over a period of time and say you seem irritable, or you seem disconnected, or you're short-tempered, you know it's time for you to do something about it. Right? It's critical in order to be able to live a better life, right? Having all that high stress, all that worry, all that anxiety is not good for your heart and your heart vessels and for your brain. And you have to remember that there's only one thing in life that you will never get back, and that's time. Time has value. So making it a point to try to focus on how can I work a 32-hour work week, flex to 40 as necessary, and sometimes a little bit beyond, but don't make it a normal. The danger of making it a normal that you work at 50, 60 hours a week in order to get the job done, get the ball across the finish line, is when you start working fewer hours, people will look at you, well, you're not working this hard. But you've created a new norm well beyond what it is that you should be putting into it. Right? You have to think about all the ways that you have created intentionally or unintentionally, subconsciously, that can be removed to become more effective. And if you do that for yourself, then you can start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Now you have time to go for a walk, time to go to the gym, time to eat healthier and prep food, more time with the kids, more time with family members, more time to go to concerts. All these joys of life will have a positive impact on how you see and feel. And that's what it is all about, right? So that's the problem statement we're trying to address here. So there are 4 elements, and I use the pure leadership power as the background here, is that we need to lead with confident humility, right? So we need to know our own limitations, our own weaknesses. You need to own them. You need to work on that. In your relationship, things don't go well. You sometimes go to counseling. Well, as a professional, you might need to seek some coaching and mentorship. Right? It is important that you need to stop pretending that everything is okay and start acknowledging that something is off and that you're running your tank empty, if not completely empty. Right? And all these things can lead to poor outcomes, including stall your professional journey. It is, we talk about responsibilities of a leader. Right? We're talking about being accountable for your own capabilities, right? Not just for your team's performance. Right? How are you performing? You should be measuring your performance on a daily basis. It also helps with behavior modification. If you want to keep track of you working fewer hours but more meaningful when you're there, put it on your scorecard and track that over a period of time. Right? If you are burning out, of course, the people who will burn out shortly after you is going to be your team. And early indicators of that is, of course, an increase of sick calls or lateness or FMLAs or intermittent FLAs or straight up turnover. Right? Nobody wants to work for a cranky boss. Right? People seek clarity, seek psychological safety. They seek stability. It's your responsibility as a leader to provide that, but you cannot do that if your tank is empty, right? So the next part of that is how to motivate people with fierce resolve, right? Is that finding sustainable drives that help deliver with clarity and, of course, also the recovery phase of that, right? It is not just doing it, but being intentional about the work that you do. It is as soft as possible and as firm as you need to be. That's the tagline to that, but it starts with you. Right? It's really important. And again, here too, I would think that you should seek an accountability partner with this. Someone who can see you at work. Right? They can tell you what you need to hear, not what it is that you want to hear. And from there, you can make course corrections, right? These genuine partnerships that you need in order to be able to perform at the highest of levels. Right? You cannot build a trust-based relationship when you are in survival mode. Deep personal, professional partnerships take time to build, but you need to be in the right frame of mind to do that. So think about these 4 things, right? Leading with confident humility, understanding your key responsibilities as a leader, motivate with fierce resolve, and building these genuine partnerships, right? 4 elements of what makes for a great leader. And they're very difficult to attain if you always work on the outer edge of your capabilities, especially on time. Right? So think about this. And how can we make this actionable? Because on the end of the day, it's important to be actionable, not just listen to what I have to say, because I'm sure that you can relate to this. Right? 64% of you are at or near burnout, so you should be able to relate to this. But it is actions that you need to take in order to be able to change that behavior into new, healthier habits and behaviors. So I'm going to propose to you what we call a 1-hour focused model, right? So 1 hour a week You're working on your leadership, not on anybody else, your leadership. Not on others, but yours. Owning it. Right? And if you say, I don't have an hour and do 15 minutes a day, right? I have that tagline in my company, right? In just 15 minutes, you too can be a highly effective leader, or the leader that your team needs you to be. Right? It's focused time without any noise around you. Right? We want to be measurable, intentional, and accountable. Right? By doing that, you can actually measure how effective you are, or how drained your tank is, so you know you need to, a meaningful countermeasure needs to take place, right? So the return on investment of that is, of course, being structured, and it will exceed your investment, right? So 15 minutes will and can deliver hours of savings of non-value added activities and get that back to your family. The time to fill that willpower tank and the love tank and the, all of the other feelings, the EQ tank. If they run on a depleted level, right, you're going to have these outward symptoms I talked about earlier. Then 3 questions you have to ask yourself on a weekly basis. Again, I would encourage you to write these down. And these, you use a Likert scale, right? 0 to 10 in order to evaluate how effective you are. What drained me this week and what should I address? What drained me this week and what should I do, or what should I address, right? What gave me energy, right, that I should do more of? And often you will see that those people who sit behind closed doors on the computers, banging away on emails and webinars and going to endless meetings. That's what a lot of people feel stressed, because it's really not normal. But if you set aside 15 minutes a day to have meaningful conversation, intentional conversation with the people you lead, it's amazing the energy you can derive from that. I made a simple challenge. Every morning when you walk into your place of employment, make eye contact with the first 100 people and just say, good morning. By just picking up your eyebrows and smiling with the 72 muscles of your face gives you dopamine. And dopamine over time becomes long-term happiness and satisfaction. Just think about the hearts you will touch, and it costs nothing. It gives you everything that you need. But more importantly, it gives the people what they deserve. Right? That's what leadership is really about on the end of the day. And the last one is that, what did I avoid that I need to face? Now, it is true that the bottom 12.5% of our workforce, right, if you put them on the bell curve, are not meeting expectations. These people can drain us, right? So you owe it to yourself to address this. Now, we're not going to go into how we're going to address that, but you have to think about that. Is that, why would you let something fester? Why would you allow something to live rent-free in your head? The longer you do that, right, worse it gets. So the practical application, right, it is that making sure that you model the behaviors on a daily basis, hold yourself accountable, and measure the outcome on a daily basis of those 1 or 2 things that you're going to be focusing on. And then continue to evaluate those questions for yourself on a weekly basis, right? What do I need to address? What is my top priority? What should I do more of that is giving me energy and certainly my team? And what do I need to avoid? So in closing, right, you can't pour from an empty cup, but more importantly, the people following you are watching how you treat yourself. You are the model. And that's not good if they see you burning out, or you become despondent, or you becoming, because they will mimic that, they will model it. If you lead with enthusiasm, you look and seek for partnership, if you bring, positive energy to the workforce itself, they're more likely to model that as well, try to match you there, right? So leadership is not a short game, it's actually a long game, right? The leaders who last are the ones who learned to refill. They're the ones who are self-aware around their willpower buckets, their love buckets, their sustainment buckets. Make sure you take the time to fill them on a regular basis. You don't drive your car until the empty light comes on, or when it starts shuddering because it's really sucking in the last couple of ounces of fuel to get to wherever you need to go. But you refill it when you're halfway there. Worst case scenario, a third of the tank. Again, look at those decisions, right? Really take action on that. So the call to action, right, the thing that you can do this week is to identify one thing that is draining you and one thing that you should be doing about more effectively and in a focused manner. And that is what leadership is all about. Right? It is, it is intentional. And it's not just acknowledging that you're working more than 40 hours a week, but actually taking action against that. Learning how to effectively delegate. Make a greater effort to become efficient with your time. Do away with hour-long meetings and use 30-minute meetings. When you have a discussion with somebody, make it a 15-minute meeting rather than a 30-minute meeting. You owe it to you, to your family, to protect that glass ball. Because if that is protected and doing well, all the other ones will do a little bit better as well. At the end of the day, you are in charge of you, and you need to be able to follow through on that. So a couple of questions that were posed in the pre-work that I did for this. That the first question is, how do I make time for myself when I'm responsible for so many people? Well, it starts at the beginning and the end of the day. Right? Instead of just walking in and go to your office or walking out and going to the parking lot to get your car, make sure that the first 5 minutes, last 5 minutes is all focused on the people that you lead. No phones. Just intentional, short conversation, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Show that you genuine care. Follow up if a question was asked, not immediately, but in due time. I'd set an expectation where you can follow up on that. And I would suggest on your calendars, put in 2 15-minute slots, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, just like a union break would be, to go out again, go to where the work is done. Spend quality time with the people that you lead. Right? Foster and nurture those relationships and those partnerships that you need to have to become a highly effective leader. It costs nothing. And we all have 15 minutes. I always kid around, do a little less strolling on TikTok and Facebook and LinkedIn, and go out to where the work is done. There's nothing more valuable. People love to see their bosses, especially bosses who are there to support them, to encourage them, to lift them up. Not to go there as somebody who's the punisher, always looking for the bad. That's not how you want to present. You want to lead with confident humility. So what if my organization's culture doesn't support this kind of thinking? Interesting question. And that is something you have to evaluate for yourself. Right? If you work in an organization where they frown upon leadership development, or they don't provide classes or coaches or mentors, if you have a boss that is too busy to pay attention to you, you don't feel that you get the developmental needs you require to get to be that next level. Now, of course, I always say, don't wait for it to be brought to you. You need to take action and go out and seek it. Albeit from a mentor within the institution, or hiring somebody like myself to help you on your journey to get one step closer to whatever it is that you want and need in life. And the last question is that, how do I know that I'm truly depleted versus just going through a hard season? You'll start seeing your ball dropping in multiple facets in life, both at home, at work, and in between. When you feel anxiety-ridden on Sunday afternoon and you really don't want to go back to work on Monday morning, it's a pretty good indicator. Right, these are outward signs that things are not quite right. I want you to take care of that now. Don't wait too long, right? Because that leads to poor outcomes. Suicide in healthcare is not out of the norm, right? We see it way too often. Part of the reason that is because people felt they're on their own. They had nowhere to go. They worked themselves literally into the ground until they became depressed, and it becomes a spiral. And that spiral becomes sometimes an easy outlet of, I can stop the pain. Okay, not only as an effectively, you need to be aware of that for yourself, your psychological balance, right? Mental wellness, spiritual wellness, physical wellness, relationship wellness, financial wellness. But it is equally important, you need to keep an eye on each other. Right? Early indicators we can see on social media, how people present, or what they wear, or how they present and their hygiene. And so be aware of that for yourself and, of course, for the people around you. So what's the first thing I should do after this session? And that is the best question of all. So I have held in philosophy for quite some time. And when I talk, when I speak publicly, I bring this up all of the time. 95% of what I just said in the last 25 minutes will be forgotten unless you take meaningful action. And that action starts not tomorrow, starts right now. Of all the things that I mentioned, and the 4 or 5 actions that I suggested, take just one of them. Start simple. Start by changing the way you enter the building in the morning and how you leave at night. That's 5 to 10 minutes per day. That is very intentional. And I promise you, if you do this consistently every day for the next 90 days, it will become your new normal. But think about the lives that you have impacted along the way, and you will get the great joys out of that. So that energy that you put out, you will receive back in short order. Very doable, very action-oriented. It will make you feel better, make the recipient feel better. And when people feel good, we can move mountains together. All right, I really hope that you enjoyed this session. This, again, is the first experiment. I did not get the LinkedIn Live for some reason up and running, but I'll post this from my YouTube channel to LinkedIn so you can look at it. I hope you enjoy this next week and put it on your calendar, right? Every Tuesday at 2:30 to 3 o'clock. And we'll talk more about, every topic you can think of. Quick 20-minute conversation. Of course, if you send me questions, I'll be more than happy to address that. Have a wonderful day. And I would encourage you to go to the Apple Store, download the Dutch Mentor mobile app. Comes with a 7-day free trial, and then it's just $1.50 per day. It has hours and hours of value-added materials in there that are all actionable. Very similar structure to what we just did over the last 30 minutes. We'll see you there. We'll talk soon, and thank you very much. Good luck, and make sure you always are in charge of your health, wealth, and mental well-being. Take action. Don't let that glass ball drop. Take care, everybody.